Welcome to the Stay Paid podcast, where we help agents and entrepreneurs master the latest business trends to unlock growth and create a life of freedom. Brought to you by Reminder Media.
Welcome to Stay Paid. My name is Joshua Stike, along with Luke Acree. And joining us today, we have back Cody Smith. He's the director of sales on the Acree Brothers Realty team, number one team in Lynchburg, Virginia. Steven is out with, what do you say, a stomach flu?
That was the puke sound, in case anybody was wondering.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
Welcome, Cody. And also joining us today is Michelle Berman. She is an Instagram lead gen expert, CEO, keynote speaker, and creator of Beyond the Method. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
All right, we're going to get into it. So this article today was written from a friend of the podcast, Lindsay Joe.
Yeah, Lindsay's a beast.
Yeah,
she's been on. What episode was she on, Ethan? You should research that so people go and watch it.
Yeah. Oh, give me 3 minutes and I will cut into your conversation later. But no, Lindsay wrote this article on this idea of being stuck in a content rut and then what to do to get out of it. And really, I think her article addresses maybe what a lot of real estate agents or sales professionals who have an online brand may struggle with, which is how much do I share my wins online, right? She was struggling with this idea of like seeing other real estate agents sharing their wins and almost feeling like they weren't as approachable because they were so successful. They were sharing their wins, had trouble kind of approaching them and figuring out like, should I be sharing more real estate content? And really just this kind of the idea of how to get out of that rust. So maybe we can kind of start with that, and then I want to lead that into the example that she gave, because I think that's going to tie right into your wheelhouse, Michelle, which is then how to turn some of that content, some of that engagement into actually leads for your business. But talking about kind of this idea of being stuck in a rut.
Yeah, I mean, I've been
She is episode 520, by the way.
520. Yeah, go check out that episode, 520.
100 episodes. More than 100 episodes ago.
Was it real? Are we at 620 right now?
Oh, no, wait. No, we're not in the
No,
season.
I was gonna
No.
say, yeah, you're a salesman now.
Yeah,
You're exaggerating. You're Josh has turned from a marketer to a salesman now. I've struggled with this a ton. I'm sure any content creator does, which is you get into this rut because you're producing the same thing over and over again, and then you run out of almost like ideas. And this is like where Gary Vee, he had crafted that whole thing of you want to document, not create. And the whole concept there was you can find yourself, if you're constantly creating, your well runs dry of creativity. And you end up just doing the same mundane thing over and over again. And then you get in your head and it's not authentic. And then it just doesn't feel like, you enjoy it anymore. And I always come back to like, you can't give from an empty cup. And so whenever I run out of ideas to share or I'm in a content rut, it is a telltale cue for me now that, you're not reading like you should be reading. You're not listening or getting your creativity, sparked by things even outside of what you normally listen to. You're not hanging around people that are, making you think differently. Like something in your body, mind, and spirit is just off. Like you're just not invested in that place because you have an empty cup because you can't give. And part of the reason we went to this format, 1 episode a week, more conversational, is because I found myself, we're doing 3 episodes a week, and I was just running out of content. I was just doing content for the sake of content, and that's never what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts. I don't know about you, Cody, what you're thinking there in content.
Yeah, so not really tuned in is what you're saying?
Yep.
Like you're not tuned into your surroundings. Yeah. The biggest thing from, that article, I was like, okay, so, because it's been preached, personal, right? Like share your personal life more, share what's going on, not as much of like content. So like, I'm curious about that so is it the more personal or is it merging the two together?
Well, you should share that you look like Jason Kelsey. I'm surprised you haven't done that yet. If nobody's watched the YouTube videos of the Acree Brothers team, he does look like Jason Kelsey.
I wore the greens.
All right, Cody, take your shirt off.
Yeah, take your shirt off. No, you take the hat off. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know how personable, how much personal content you should share versus not share. I do know this, personal gets more engagement. I don't know what your thoughts are, Michelle, on that of like sharing personal versus business, if there's a ratio you kind of think about or how you even think about that.
Yeah, so I think of it less as ratio, and I think Josh said it really well. Like the approachability aspect of the content we produce, I think is the main point of the conversation. And I will tell you that, especially if we talk about us, right, Luke, you and me, and I don't know Josh and Cody as well, but I can tell you guys, like, you know, I have a very big personality. I'm a very high D on the disc profile. And people, when they meet me or when they hear me teach or when they hear me speak, I have this very kind of sort of dominant personality, right? That's just a good way of describing it. But what the personal content does is it makes that very, very approachable to the general person, right? So someone that maybe doesn't have that personality or might be intimidated by that personality sees the personal content, sees that I have a little boy, sees that I love, you know, hiking and running and CrossFit and all these other things that just make me really relatable, or hole in the wall coffee, or, you know, whatever the thing is. And there's a specific pillar of content that I would love to talk about that I call it God moments in my world. We can dig into, but a God moment is literally what's going on in our life, like on our heart as that's happening, right? So I share a lot of those types of God moments throughout my days, whether that's via story or whether I record a video and then turn it into a piece of content that goes on my grid. But when we share those things, it makes that big, strong personality totally relatable to the general public. So what I think the problem is, as far as, is it a percentage of this or is it a percentage of that? That's where we fall victim to the content rut, because we feel like we're forced to stay into this sort of box or this sort of grid of do this, then do that, then do this, which there is a benefit to pillars, right? Which we actually talked about when you came on my show, Luke, right? We talked about the pillars of content, but we have to be, I don't want to say fluid, that's probably a bad word, but we have to be willing to let our hearts lead. And the real estate content, I do think, is important. We do want to build credibility and establish the trust factor of, like, am I going to hire this person because they can get the job done? But most importantly, am I going to hire this person because they're my human, right? And like the best possible call that a real estate agent could ever have from somebody that comes through Instagram is someone that reaches out to them and is like, you're my person. I've listened to everything, all your videos. I've listened to how you dealt with John and Mary over there. I have a similar story. The fact that you can help them, like, I know you can help me. Right. And all of us, all three of you, including myself, right. What are the best calls that we ever are on? Right. When someone calls us and says, I don't need to know about anybody else. Like, you're my person. How do we go? How do we do this?
That is super well said. Yeah, I think the struggle always is, or at least my struggle has been, is that, like a lot of who I am tends to be stuff that the normal world, normal society would tell you not to talk about. So like religion. So I'm pretty big into theology and philosophy and that type of idea. Politics. Although I did turn off the boob tube a long time ago because it was just making me crazy. Now I've turned it back on, YouTube TV, and it's driving me nuts again. But like politics would be one, and then money, right? Those are three things that like society.
By the way, these are like three things that are talked about all the time on social media.
Yeah, it's like
real estate
I think the normal
about money too much, right?
Yeah.
Can we all agree on that? Real estate agents talk about money too much because I'm in the top 1%. I did this many deals. I've done this much transaction volume, which I don't care, right? Like, I mean,
so you're saying like you shouldn't talk about that. That's what you think.
I'm not saying you can't share that. I'm saying it's about how we share that, right? And if you guys are familiar with Neil Ford, he's an incredible human that I just recently actually met, but he talks about storytelling, right? And how can you tell a story around data, right? Because if you just spit out data to people, they're never going to remember that. Like, it's not going to land in their brain. But he gave an example of the story, The Three Little Pigs or Red Riding Hood from when we were little. We remember that story, and we're always going to remember that story no matter how old we are. And the reason is because of the way that story was delivered. But what is the true value of those stories, right? The analogy or the symbolism of what it represents of how we want to raise our kids and the morals and life lessons that we get from it. So the point that I was trying to make is, Cody, if you want to share the data, right? But it's how we tell the story around the data is what people are going to remember, and ultimately is what going to make people want to care versus I'm just talking about math and the numbers will eventually, like, I cannot tell you personally, and please correct me if you guys think or feel differently, but I could not tell you a single person that I remember seeing a graphic about their transaction volume for the year that I actually remember at all.
Yeah, great point.
It is.
I just
It's well
remember they're
said.
the top is probably what I would say. Like, I don't remember the exact number, but the credibility in that is what I would say.
Yeah, I
But
think
the credibility matters there, right? For sure.
Yeah,
But to your audience, the credibility factor is how we connect that to a personal story or to a passion that makes that story last to them.
Yeah.
I think it's the mediums that
are
I think it's the mediums that you put it through also matter, like the distribution methodology, because like I see the value in stating your transactions or stating your volume if it's depending on the medium. I'll give you an example. So I think what you said is super well said on the story side of, if you think about like Instagram. I was sharing this with Tim on your team, Cody. Like, you need to take a deal that you did where the person gained, I don't know the number, 30 grand in equity or some money they made extra on top because you sold them the home at the right time or you helped them negotiate the deal, whatever. When you do the Instagram story, you're telling that story in the post. I was looking at this house the other day for my client, Bob, and I was just blown away that, we bought 2 years ago and it's already gone up in value by $50,000. And congrats, Bob, to you and your wife, Amy. Amazing job there. Hope you guys are doing well. If you guys want to know what your home's worth, would love to let you know, right? Like, that's almost like telling a story, not very creatively there, but just off the top of my head. But when you are, like, if you think about the distribution methodology of like your website or like your collateral that you give in your listing presentation, the trust signals of showcasing your top 1% real estate agent, you have sold this many homes. That matters. Why? Because at the bottom of the funnel in the purchasing decision, what you care about in that moment is, are you good at what you do? So it's like, I've already bought your story because you've got me here through your content. Now I want to verify you're good at what you do. And I verify that by basically going, well, have you won any awards? Like, have you served other clients? Like, do you have testimonials? Like, those type of things. It's kind of the simple example would be Amazon. Yeah. Go to Amazon to buy a product. 2 of the exact same product type things pop up. What do you immediately look at?
Number of reviews.
Number of reviews, number of ratings of reviews, which is a number-centric thing.
Here's the example that Lindsay gave in her article, which I love from a storytelling perspective, so it's right on point with what we're saying. But basically, she was having trouble, kind of this idea of sharing her real estate wins. So she made a video featuring a dog, and she hired a kid on Fiverr.
This is great.
For $40 to do a voiceover as the dog speaking and talking about how the dog's always wanted areas to run around in, and then her mom and dad got her 5 acres, and so it all ties then back to Lindsay Joe's brand. But the benefits of it that she mentioned was, number one that I never thought of, for hiring a videographer and spending $40 on a voiceover. I think most people would be like, oh, that's expensive for a social media clip, but that's now a gift to your clients. So your clients now, because she went out and she got some video of them playing with their dog in the yard. I love some professional video of playing with my dog in the yard. I need to get a better real estate agent. But so then she kind of tied all that, made a really well produced video. So that's one, you have a gift for your client. 2, the clients are more likely to share that video in announcing their move, because it's a very well done video and it features them, not Lindsay. 3, she said you can use the collab feature to reach your clients' audiences. And then 4, she's leveraging the video to convert current leads and send to past clients. So she's actually sending out the video to other families that she knows, saying, I just got this video back from my videographer. Hopefully I can find your pups an awesome yard too.
Dude, that's so good.
Michelle, I'd love to get your thoughts on, kind of, because you're the lead conversion expert on Instagram, that sort of strategy, or any other strategies that you're seeing working for converting your content into leads and business.
Well, that is an amazing example of how to tell a story in a video, and then how to use what I love to call leverage, right? Leverage is the name of the game when it comes to conversion on the platform. So we'll dig into that. But before we transition, I want you guys to imagine like a Venn diagram in your mind, right? We all know what a Venn diagram is. But on one side, you'll have what I call passion, or your passions, plural. And then on the other side, you have your credibility, right? So the other circle is, what are you really good at? What's your ideal client, target audience, how long have you been doing it? What's that it factor for you? What's your differentiator, et cetera, et cetera. And then the intersection of those two circles is what you should be producing content about, right? Or how you should be producing content. And when I describe this analogy, or when I share this, the very first thing that comes to people's minds is, well, how do I combine my passion of, let's say, DIY projects, right? Like, let's just say you're really into that type of stuff, right? And I actually have a client that just did this exact example, which is ironic. But so let's say you're doing, on one side, you have DIY projects. On the other side, you're a loan officer that does a lot with first-time home buyers, or a real estate agent that does a lot with first-time home buyers. Either one, right? How do you create an intersection between those two things? Most people are like, Michelle, how the heck do you come up with a combination there? Like, what type of content are we talking about? And the answer to that, in my opinion, is if we're using something like a retaining wall, right, which is a good example of a DIY project outside, and we're in the summertime, springtime, that's what everybody's doing. So you're building a retaining wall. How do we correlate that or create an analogy between building a retaining wall and how to calculate what type of mortgage payment you're comfortable with as far as price point, right? So I know I can afford a $600,000 house because my average monthly mortgage payment that I'm willing to have is X, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. So you, the real estate agent, how do you find the correlation? How do you build an analogy? Well, guys, this is where AI comes in. I'm a huge fan of leverage, right? Which we'll talk about on the prospecting side, but ask ChatGPT, hey, can you create an analogy between building a retaining wall and what it would look like?
That's great.
What it would look like to calculate your mortgage payment as a buyer, or how to calculate the ideal mortgage payment for you as a buyer, right? And then you'll get this kind of interwoven sort of story. And then for you as the content producer, it's a matter of how can you tell that story on video where it doesn't sound like a script and it doesn't actually come across like you're reading off of a teleprompter. And I tell everybody this, like Erin Andrews, I used to want to be her back in the day. I actually graduated from college with a journalism and psychology degree thinking that I would go be a broadcast journalist.
Oh, wow.
One thing is I'm way too short, so I would not be able to do that. But I'm only 5'3", so they'd have to like zoom down, but just being funny. But the reality is when you watch Erin Andrews as an example, or when you watch good, like Bob Costas, right? Like during the Olympics, like those types of people, you know that they're reading off a teleprompter, but can you tell that they are, right? You can. And that's the value of good, in my opinion, that's the value of good scripting. So if you're good at producing the behind the scenes script of the story and then you're good at delivering it, nobody will ever know. So again, that's the point, is I never want someone to look at anything that I produce and think, oh, she's reading off of a teleprompter, right? So I'll leave that there, and then we'll transition into the prospecting piece, or the term leverage that I use a lot. So how do we turn our audience that is already consuming our content potentially, or the data that we already have access to, how do we convert them? So when I'm talking about data specifically, I'm talking about like who's in your CRM, right? So Lindsay is an example of someone who went out, sent that video to a bunch of other people that were in her database, because the fact that it was just really, in my opinion, a kick-ass idea. Why not, right? Everybody's got dogs. Create leverage, right? Instead of doing harder work by calling them each individually and getting no responses or getting hung up on, she's using a tool that has worked, that is funny and interactive and is personable, and using leverage. So when it comes to Instagram specifically, right? Produce that content. And then in theory, your day-to-day, you should be focused on outbound prospecting through the platform, right? And I've been doing this for 10 years. And I still can tell you, like, people do not do this. And I don't know why, but maybe that's why I'm in business, right? I guess. But the reality is, like, people are not doing it. And so there's a lot of strategy out there, quote unquote, of do 10 comments and do 10 story replies every day, right? But what they're not teaching is how to use leverage. So what you need to understand is each day of the week, you should have a specific category of where you're prospecting or who you should be talking to. So if you focus on a different category each of the 5 days of the week, you will create opportunity. Now, for a real estate agent, what does that look like, right? Day one could be what Lindsay did, where she sent that video to a bunch of past clients based off of they're in her database. They've either transacted with her before, or they have inquired, and maybe they haven't pulled the trigger, but they've at least inquired, right? So that's a pretty warm list. So let's say Mondays is that day for her. So what she's going to do on Monday is she's going to go to Instagram and find every single one of those people, make sure she's connected to them, right? That doesn't mean following them, which we'll come back to, but that means you're connected to them. Meaning you're commenting on something that they've recently shared, you're replying to a story that they've recently put up, and you're creating a touch point with them. So every Monday, she's working through her list of people that she is connected to in her database, or this warm lead list that we're talking about of people she already has access to. That does two things there, right? Number one is it gets her connected to them on Instagram, which is obviously, it sounds like a primary platform for her, which it is for a lot of people. And secondly, most importantly, it keeps you top of mind, right? Yeah. Because if you work through, let's say you have 600 people in your database, well, 600 divided by, call it 40, right? What does somebody do that math for me? But if you do 40 every week, you're going to get through that list in a little under 10 weeks, 8 weeks, right? Something like that. And then you're going to have to work back through the list again. So you'll go back to the top. But in the meantime, the people that are in that list, you're warming them up. You're probably having a lot of conversations with them. So like, let's say I message Luke, let's pretend I'm Lindsay, right? And on Mondays, Luke was one of the people in my database that was a past client and or someone that had recently inquired. So I'm going to send that video that we're talking about, the dog video, to Luke. And I'm also going to probably comment on something on your feed, probably comment on something or reply to one of your stories. But I'm creating that touch point. Now what's going to happen is Luke's probably going to respond to me. We're now going to be in conversation back and forth. Maybe Luke's not ready to buy again right now. Maybe Luke's not ready to buy for the next 2 months. But guess what? He just remembered my name. So the conversation is going to continue. And then every Monday, I know that if...
I have a question for you on that because I agree with you 100%. I think it builds the top of mind awareness and makes all your marketing more effective. Have you found any good messages, or I call them like transition lines, that can take it from a convo about DMing on someone's picture or commenting on someone's picture, to actual like conversation of real estate? Have you found any good combo lines to make those transitions?
The answer is yes. So the way that I teach this, and thank you for that, but the way that I teach this is your initial message is 3 parts. Okay. And this initial message, if done properly, will do that transition almost inadvertently, like almost on its own, right? So what it will look like is it's one message, and that one message has 3 parts. Part number 1 is acknowledgement, right? So what did they post? We have to acknowledge that. And the reason I say that is how many of us have gotten messages where we're like, did you even read that? Or did you?
Me, I've gotten messages like that.
All the time, every day, right? I can't even tell you how many messages I get where people are like, Michelle, do you need help growing your Instagram? And I'm like, did you not look at my profile and see what I do for a living? But anyways, it's fine. But the acknowledgement piece is important, right? So if you're responding to someone's stories, if you're engaging with someone's piece of content on their grid, acknowledge what they have posted. Very, very important, because you'll also stand out against the bots that are out there. You'll also stand out against a lot of the people that are, unfortunately, in my opinion, using VAs to do this, which I love a good VA, but they should not be doing our prospecting for us. I'm sorry. That's my own personal opinion. But
just because you've never seen a good one?
When it comes to intuition is where the problem is, where the problem lies there. So we can dig into that if you want to, but the problem is nobody's going to know how I know you, Luke, better than me. Right. Right. So if I'm interacting with you, right, there's nobody that's going to be able to
because the key is it has to be actually personal. Like it has to be actual interaction. It can't be.
If you're using Monday as an example and you have 40 people that you're going to go reach out to, if a VA is coming in and doing that on Lindsay's behalf, for example, is that VA going to know that one of those 40 people is someone that she went to high school with, and that girl's husband works with her husband, like all of the things that our brain will naturally do, which will tie into how we send that first initial message.
Gotcha.
A VA can't do that. Right.
So do you think you won't, you'll just lose more, or you won't win at all? Like when you're saying,
no, I think you'll win, but I think it's going to be a lot harder to work through the noise.
That makes sense.
Of the platform.
Well, until AI actually hooks up to your CRM and you've documented all of those features, and then AI does it for you, because
it's when you plug into AI. And
when you actually plug in, that's when it will actually.
We are AI.
When you're a cyborg.
I will tell you, no matter how, and I don't want to say no matter how like indefinitely, but I want to be confident in my statement here because I've been on stages alongside gentlemen that have created AI software and very vocally said no. Right. And I will happily continue to do that, in the sense of when it comes to prospecting right now. It takes me 10, 15 minutes a day to be able to do what I'm describing on the different days of the week. And I believe that the opportunity and the ability to convert these conversations is so high because it's me, right? Because it's me talking to Luke, or it's me talking to John Doe or whoever. Because again, I know Luke through a mutual friend.
Yeah, it's only as good as its memories. It's only as good as its data bank. And you have the data bank, you have all the memories. So unless you
as the person have it.
Correct. Unless you can document all that, which is, obviously a different line of, work that you would have to put in. I agree. So you have the acknowledge that you're acknowledging.
Yeah,
what are the other two parts?
First. The second part is subliminal business play. So this is where that comes in. And for context, I'm just going to peel the onion back right and say how I've studied this or how I've developed this is through a combination of human psychology and sales psychology and where those two things merge. Okay. So as far as if people are like, Michelle, how the heck did you come up with that? It's reading a lot, right? There's a book called The Story Factor. If you guys are familiar with it, go read it, or not familiar with it, go read it. Another one like What to Say, which most real estate agents have read that book. It's tiny. It's not very big. Yep. But when you combine these elements and think through that, that's how I developed the 3-part strategy. But acknowledgement first, subliminal business play is second. And then the third part of that message is an open-ended question: who, what, why, how, something along that or in that capacity. So an example of what this would look like, and I've used this example before, but it's a good one. Girl Scout cookies. So let's say it's you, Luke, and I'm messaging you because in your stories, you posted that you bought $100 worth of Girl Scout cookies from the girls out in front of Walmart, which we've all been victim to, right?
Yes, exactly.
But I've definitely paid more than 100 for Girl Scout cookies in the past, so it's fine. But if that's something that you post in your stories, let's pretend I'm Lindsay, right, in this scenario, because we're talking about that video. My first job is going to be to acknowledge that you just posted in your stories a picture of you buying a lot of Girl Scout cookies. So my opening or my acknowledgement statement might be, no way, I just actually did this too. Can't believe I fell for it, but I do every year, period. Then I'm going to go into subliminal business play. Now, here's what this will sound like. And there's lots of variations, and I'm sure you guys could think about it and come up with multiple more. But a good example of a subliminal business play would be I'm lucky though, I'm not actually going to have to eat all $100 worth of these Girl Scout cookies or all of the $100 worth that I bought because I have a bunch of closings next week. So I'm actually going to give them away as goodie baskets or as part of my closing gift. Then I'm going to tie it in with an open-ended question of, are all the cookies you bought, are they all for you? ? So and I'll just throw this back at you to keep it conversational here and say, what did you guys hear in that?
Well, I thought you were going to say I don't think I have a pantry big enough. Do you? Let's get you a bigger pantry.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, that's good.
No, go ahead, Cody.
No, I was like, I'd eat all the cookies. Yeah, the one thing I'm hearing through all this is I'm thinking through just time, because I know you said 10 to 15 minutes is usually what it takes in a day. So when you're going through all this, I'm like, man, that seems like a lot of work to do for that type of prospecting. Is it, normal for if I'm not in it like you are, 10 to 15 minutes, you would say is what it would take for me to do?
I mean, I tell my clients to time block an hour a day if they're new to the process. Most people that I talk to in my world spend anywhere from, an hour to 3 hours a day prospecting, and they usually have a time blocked portion of their morning. Or a role play session or something like that, in their day-to-days, right? Which is pretty standard. But what I will tell you is you can't not do this anymore. What has been working will probably continue to work to some extent, but you guys have to be able to adapt to what is currently happening in our world, which is people are using Instagram and people are using social media to create and make decisions. So why wouldn't your prospecting why wouldn't part of your prospecting time be allocated towards this? again, 10 years in, I'm about to celebrate 10 years in business, and people
That's
still aren't.
Crazy, 10 years already.
Yeah.
And
it goes back to your like kind of the transition to bring it back to like what you're doing there, Michelle, is when you coach, hey, call your clients up, ask about their work, because that'll naturally ask them to ask about your work.
Yeah, correct. That's a simple transition.
Yeah, very simple.
Well, it makes sense to me, like when you share, like I'm using it for the closing, you're building trust and credibility of like, hey, I'm active, things are happening. They naturally, in human, conversation will go, congrats, that's amazing. Your work seems to be going well. Like it's a very natural route that the combo could go.
But they may not even acknowledge it at all, Luke, right?
And it doesn't matter either way.
That part at all.
Right. Either way, you are just having a conversation with them. I find like, I wonder, like my gut goes to every day, have the conversations. We had done an episode last week and we had suggested doing a 5 for 5, which was like basically take 5 minutes every single day and reach out to 5 people in your database with a similar concept of messaging. Like you're getting in front of them. And I wonder if you do that every single day, take 15, 20 minutes to do that, or you're saying an hour, which I think is even better, then it gives you permission to come around at least once a quarter and ask, is there anything I can do to serve you in real estate, whether it's buying, selling, or investing? Is there anything I can do to serve you? I think, and it'd be interesting to get you guys' take on this, but this has just been my experience. I think people underestimate the power of directly just asking somebody and being insanely clear and specific. Instead, they think too much. Like this is about what I loved about what you're saying, Michelle, is like, this is authentic. It's a real conversation. You're engaging with them. If the combo turns to real estate, awesome. If it doesn't, okay, you're top of mind. And then you have that intentional touch point once a quarter, just checking in, wanted to make sure if you needed anything in real estate, I want to make sure you know I'm here to serve you. If you wanted an update on your equity report for your home, which is probably one of your biggest investments, I'd love to get that to you. Almost acting like you're their financial advisor, and then going, a lot of people are interested in X right now. Is that something you would be interested in? I have found in my years of doing this and being prospected myself, the people who make a difference in me are not the people who dance around the point, but are the people who literally just come out and go, can I help you with this? If not, no problem, still friends. And then they can engage with me throughout the rest of the month, just with normal stuff, whether it's on a football game or something like that. And that's what makes it work versus the people who are engaged me with the football game, but then they kind of slyly ask me for business, but you're just like, I kind of sense what you're doing here, but why? What is this really what you want to happen? And I'd just rather the directness. I just don't think people are direct enough.
The funnel is exactly that, right? So like you're going to start with the 3-part message. You're going to create contact or initiate a conversation with them. And then the idea is that they reply, which our response rate is about 57%. So
that's amazing. Wow.
We tracked every single outbound message that we sent on behalf of clients last year. And we had a reply rate of 57%, which is wild, right? And the responses that we did get back, 2 big things. One, they were longer, right? So the person that responded actually gave us some meat in the response versus thank you, period, or just hearting it, right? So we got longer, meatier responses. And then secondly, or more importantly, the conversation was more likely to continue. But why, right? Why was it more likely to continue? Because we, as the responder, so let's say I send you that message about Girl Scout cookies. You respond to me, Luke, with a little bit of a meaty response, couple sentences maybe. It's my job now to live in the land of curiosity, to keep asking questions, because if I don't keep asking questions, then the conversation will die, right? If I'm just doing statements, or if I'm just saying, yeah, that's awesome, exclamation point, and then you, Luke, you're going to be like, I don't really have anything to say back to that. But then here's the key is once you respond back to me and I continue to quote unquote cry, right, or keep asking questions to keep the conversation going, it's now up to me to go for the ask, right? And to intuitively know when to go for the ask, because it can be done very poorly, right? How many of us are on LinkedIn, or how many of us listening to this are on LinkedIn, and we get these disgusting sales breath messages every single day?
Well,
right?
I'll read you guys an example of one that
so bad.
just happened to me this week. And it doesn't sound bad in nature, but it's just like, it's like, this is the guy, he friends me on Wednesday. Hi, Luke. Looks
Never
like
friend anybody first of all. But that's better.
Hi, Luke. Looks like we have some connections in common here. It would be great to network with you. And then he goes, thank you for connecting. Have a great rest of your day. And then Sunday, so from Thursday to Sunday, he goes, hi, Luke, reaching out to see if you'd be open to jumping on a quick call. I'd love to bounce ideas around with you and see if there's any ways we can add value to one another. Can we find some time in the next week or so?
Oh, add value, of course, yeah.
But here is his, this guy's name's Scott. I don't want to, blast him, but entrepreneur, passionate alley, career coach, people connector. So it's obvious what he's trying to do. And instead of just saying what he's trying to do, and it's like what I really want to say to him is, Scott, do you think I have time to jump on a phone call and bounce around ideas with somebody that I don't know at all, I have no relationship with, and your ask is, let's jump on a call? Like, you get what I'm saying? Meaning, like, if that's my internal Luke going like, what do you think? I just sit here and twiddle my thumbs and have time to just bounce ideas off of people? It's like,
I'm surprised you have time to read these.
Yeah, this is what people do. That it's just like, and you wonder why you're not having success. It's like, if you're gonna go in and just be about the connection, then play the long game and be about the connection and comment on my stuff and engage with my stuff and try to at least give some value that way before you try to, bounce ideas. It's just like, it'd be like me going to, I don't know, pick somebody. It'd be like Tom Ferry going, Tom, can we just jump on a phone call and bounce off ideas and see if I can add value to you? I mean, what is the guy going to do? Sure, Luke.
You next.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a perfect example.
That is like, is he sending it out massively and just trying to get, bottle of funnel?
For sure.
Absolutely. That's a VA. That's one of your virtual assistants doing that for sure.
And that's a copy paste. And that's somebody who's thinking volume versus what is my response rate, which is why, to your point, Cody, like, what am I telling people to do as clients of mine? Like, 10, 15 minutes is really all you need to build one relationship that's going to create an opportunity. I am literally sitting here on this call with you because I did that exact thing with Luke. Right. Like, it's that simple. And Luke was the only message I sent that day. Right. Like, and I picked a specific category for me, which I have the same tracker that I teach. It's just different for me because my ultimate CTA is different as far as what I'm trying to accomplish with the platform. And one of the days is podcast for me, getting on podcasts. Right. So I know, and I have known of Luke for quite some time through my relationship with Grant. And so I specifically chose Luke that day, sent a message, right? But that message was very intentional. I was very direct, but I was also very personal at the same time. And Luke responded, right? So there is a way to do it that will work, but there is also certainly a way, like we're talking about with that example, where I can totally 100% tell that was not meant for me. So I am on to the next.
Yeah. So well said.
Awesome. Let's go.
So it feels like you have to go one way or the other. Oh, sorry, Josh.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to make sure that we get a chance to hit to the, I want to do the sales, but it's more of a
marketing strategy
It just
of the
doesn't
week.
have the same
It's kind of like Mama Mario, Come on, we got to get the lights, Ethan. Where's the sound effects? The lights, man. We gotta time
blast it again.
All right, so Luke, this is one that you brought up since we're talking about social media. This is the idea of going live with another account. Do you want to go over that?
So this is just a simple thing that you can do that you could take action on immediately. Everybody's looking to grow your following and reach more people on Instagram. You want to reach your ideal target audience in your community. So a great way to do that is to find another, content creator, or quite frankly, just another business or local professional in your area. So you're a real estate agent listening to this, find the insurance agent, go live together. They have a following. You have a following. When you go live and then invite them into the live, their audience will get notified. And that will then, of course, bring their audience to you and your audience to them. Yep. So it's a way, if you do that consistently every week, it's a way to cross-pollinate. It's a way to spread your brand. You get a bunch of different effects there. One is you get the consistency of going live, which Instagram likes consistency in using the features. Number two, you get to network with another business professional that's looking to grow. So you naturally build relationships there. And then number three, the added benefit is, even though only a couple people will join the lives, let's be honest, that's a couple more people that you have today that know about you, a lot more that you can build a relationship with that didn't know you before.
A lot more that joined saw the notification. Yep. So it's another
that's what I love. The guy on our teams are doing it more, and every time I see it.
Yeah.
I'm going to piggyback off of this and teach your audience how to amplify this a little bit.
I love
it. One of the ways that I do this with our clients is the 12 days of giving. So it happens around the October timeframe is where we start to build it out. If you guys are familiar with the concept of the 12 days of Christmas, right? That's really the idea. But what you're doing is what we call the 12 days of giving, to be respectful of religions and all of that. But what essentially you're doing is you're picking 12 different businesses or partnerships like what we're talking about here. And you're choosing a specific one each day of the 12 days. And for a real estate agent listening to this, the most important thing you can do, in my opinion, is get very hyper local and focus on people in your area that have a social following. So pick your favorite coffee shop, but maybe pick your second favorite one because they have a social following, and your first favorite one is too old, doesn't have one. Right. So in theory, each of the 12 days, you're choosing a specific business that has a social following. You start this process in October, right? And then I actually have already written it. There's a proposal you will literally hand to the business and say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is my track record of being able to do this in the past. If you don't have that, obviously that verbiage gets changed. But the idea is that you're telling the person or the business, hey, I want you to be included in this, and here's your responsibility in doing it. All you have to do is reshare this post to your stories and your grid once I share it. That's their only responsibility. And obviously they have to give you, $25 or $50 worth of something, not money value, or I'm sorry, not cash, but of value.
I love that.
And in doing this for a real estate agent, you get to choose 12 businesses that are hyper local so that you can really build your very local following, right? And the biggest thing that I get from people all the time on just about every call, well, Michelle, Instagram is a struggle because it's just like this worldwide platform. How do I get people that actually live where I live to be connected with me? And there's so many things I could get into with that, but specifically this 12-day campaign that you do every holiday season will crush for you. Awesome. And the idea is each of the 12 days, you're recording a reel in the business or at the location, right, with the person actually giving you whatever it is that they're giving you of value. So long story short, I've never had a real estate agent client of mine do this and not generate either opportunity or direct ROI, like instantaneous ROI out of it. So opportunity wise, I had a real estate agent in Salina, Texas that did this. The very first year that I curated it, I actually used her as my beta tester because I was building the process. And she's in Salina, which is a little bit of a smaller suburb type part of the Dallas metro area. And she chose 12 businesses, some of which didn't really have much of a social following, but some of them which did. But we very intentionally chose in Salina. And she ended up having the magazine, the publication of Salina for the entire city. Reach out to her on Instagram and say, I cannot believe you just did this. Like, I love that you're supporting the 12 businesses here locally in our city. We would love for you to be the feature of January as our real estate agent of the month, right? It was a 3-page spread in this magazine.
About great karma. I mean, geez.
It would have been $3,500 for her to pay for that. And she got it for free. And all she had to do was love on 12 businesses in her hyper local area. And she's now done it every year since.
That's amazing.
Awesome. All right. Well, I want to get to this week's listener Q&A. Obviously, we were talking about social media, and we have a social media. We get this question because we post for people.
Yes.
On social media. So, Luke, I'd love to hear your thoughts just from what you've learned. And then, Michelle, I don't know if you know from more of a technical perspective, but here's what it was. Justin Adams and Larry Shiflett both kind of sent in a similar question. Does Facebook and Instagram care that posts are generated and posted from another platform or scheduled versus posting to your accounts directly? So obviously you have a creator account.
My old answer would have been no. And I mean, my still technical answer would be, it doesn't truly care if it's done properly because Instagram does, or Facebook and Instagram do vetting. We went through a ton of vetting, right, for our scheduling tool and stuff like that. And they have a built-in scheduler themselves, so they're not anti-scheduling. Yeah. But the one thing that, I just talked about on the walkthrough podcast with the broke agent, Eric, who obviously is an Instagram machine, is they are changing to where they are trying to give organic juice to the original creator of the content. So that is one thing that I am watching to go, If you use a scheduler, I guess it could be your custom content because we have that ability in our scheduler.
Yeah.
But if you're using curated content, like potentially maybe that hurts you a little bit. But I don't think it's going to hurt you whether it's a scheduler or not.
Michelle, do you what are you seeing with your clients? Are you seeing like do you recommend your clients schedule out their content or post it directly?
So if they're paying us to do it for them, we do use a scheduler, and I'm with you, Luke, on this. Like, we vetted a lot of them, and here's what I can tell you after being in the industry for 10 years now. Instagram and Facebook are not how do you say this politically correctly? They're pretty smart, right? Meaning they understand that their users need time, like they are lacking time, right? So many years ago, the primary platform that we used was Planoly, which we don't use that anymore, but that was what we had used back in the day. And what I can tell you is that when we first started using it back in 2015, 16, it did hurt our audience for sure. Because why? Right? Instagram had not approved the third-party application, meaning Instagram was still a very new platform at that time. So all of these third-party apps that were coming out, Later was a good example. Hootsuite wasn't a good example. You had all of these that were all kind of coming out at the same time. And lots of people were like, oh, this is a cool new thing. But Instagram still hadn't caught on, quote unquote, to just being okay. So long story short, yes, it was definitely hurting you. Now, fast forward to now, right? You have your content creator studio or built within your Meta studio on Facebook. And so Instagram and Facebook have figured out that this is going to be around no matter what. People need it. So it's become a little bit less of an issue. And I certainly use it occasionally. But for me personally, as somebody who is less worried about virality and more worried about connection and conversations, I don't post every day. I don't need to, right? Like, and that's my take on it. Like, I believe that
I think you get more juice when you don't post every day.
I agree. And the number one reason why the reason, in my opinion, why people struggle with consistency is because they feel like they have to. They feel like they're being taught to do that.
Yep.
Right. And the reality is I don't have time to post every single day. And even if I did, that's not the best use of the time that I do have. Right. Because what I want people to understand is consistency looks different for every single person. Right. And if you find your level of consistency, you will keep showing up. If you feel forced into a level of consistency because the world around you is telling you, if you have to post twice a day or else your Instagram's not going to do well, then you're creating a sort of unrealistic panic, right? Like in this person, you're literally building anxiety in the audience. So, I mean, I think NAR came out with the data recently of like 46% of real estate agents say that they're using Instagram, but only like a 30 some, I don't know the exact metric, but it was like a 30 percentage type number of that 46% would say that they actually felt like they knew what they were doing. So you're talking about
I could be lumped into that. No.
A 40% number is saying that they're even using it. And then a 30% of that 40% is saying that they feel like they're somewhat proficient. Guys, 10 years later, and that number is still that low, like get out of town. Why? Because people are not teaching what actually matters. People are teaching virality. People are teaching how to scale like crazy, get fake, buy fake views, buy fake video. Buy fake likes, buy fake video views. One example, and I have to say this because it's on my heart, but my very first year, I think of launching Beyond the Method, I think I did like 7 or 8 podcasts. And one of them that I got on, I remember calling my husband at work and just being like, babe, this is it. This is like the breakthrough podcast that I'm about to get on. Like, we are about to blow up. Like, mind you, I had just launched Beyond the Method. It was very new. And I knew what I was doing, but at the same time, like, that's what we needed. We needed exposure. And so I'm like, this is it. Like, I told my husband, I was like, go buy a bottle of wine, come home. Like, we are like, this is the day, and I watched the Instagram account when he published the episode. I'm not going to name names, but when he published the episode, and I watched it go from about 2 likes in the first 7 minutes to literally 2,000 by 10 minutes. And I watched it and I just kept and there's some backstory here, which I think we should get into quickly, but I watched that happen and I clicked on it and I looked at it and I'm like,
these aren't real.
Hell, right? And then I watched the downloads, right? Or lack thereof. quite frankly. I watched the profile visits that came through. I didn't post anything that day on my grid. I was very intentional so that I could see the inbound that would happen. Guys, literally nothing, not a single new follower, not a single new message, nothing. So, and mind you, I didn't know this guy from Adam. I just saw what I saw and thought, oh my gosh, this is it. I straight up messaged him and I was like, that, like from business owner to business owner, like you're doing your audience a disservice. You bought hundreds of thousands of followers, you're buying fake views, you're buying fake likes, and you're selling a false product to an audience. And now the backstory to that is in 2014, when I got into the Instagram space, I was buying and selling and flipping Instagram accounts like you would buy and sell real estate. So I was purchasing platforms or purchasing different accounts similar to like the broke agent, like the meme style account. And I was selling ad space in the process. So I would have a brand or a company reach out to me and say, Michelle, here's $5,000. Can you create the ad, like the Canva type template? Can you write the copy? And then can you choose Instagram accounts to put this ad on? Choose the hour slot, 24 hours, buy whatever you want to buy. And then if our product generates an ROI, or if we see a big uptick in website clicks or website views, or like email subscribers or downloads, then we'll send you another $5,000 and you just keep going. Right. So I literally built my entire methodology from understanding how to do this, right? Understanding how to choose what type of accounts to put content on, how to see and sniff out the bullshit, quote unquote, from a mile away, and then be able to track based off this type of account and this type of audience. Is this going to work for my client, or is this going to work for this particular brand? Right. So long story short, I just got really, really good at being able to see what is going to get someone to take their credit card or their wallet out of their purse and buy something. And when you translate that into what I'm talking about here, which is when we're producing content, virality does not matter. What does matter is, are we having conversations, and are you waking up to a multitude of messages in your inbox of conversations that need to be continued? Now, to Cody's point early on, how long do I need to spend time doing this, right? 10 to 15 minutes a day is all I need to be able to build one relationship that is going to create an opportunity for me. That is it. That is it. I don't need 2 hours. I don't need to make 100 phone calls. Right before I jumped on this podcast, I followed up with a lead from my DMs. And she answered right away because she knew that we were talking back and forth, but that lead originated in my DMs. And I took it offline. I took it out of my messages and just picked up the phone and called her. And it was an excellent conversation, right? So that's somebody that I get to stay top of mind with. She's coming to see me speak in a couple of days in Scottsdale. And do I think she's going to give me her credit card to buy my course in 3 days? I sure do. Right? Why? Because I believe that I built the relationship properly and I was focused on her. I made her feel like she was the important person, because she is. And that was the only relationship I focused on today. I didn't go on a hunt for 17 more, right? Like, I'm just living in the space of where I know I need to be. And sorry for the tangent.
No, but that's fantastic. Yeah,
it's a fantastic tangent that just speaks to the value of personalization and posting. So, all right, before we close out, Cody, any last words?
No, nothing to add. I really appreciate, Michelle, everything you brought. That's one, I would say social media is probably a huge part we can target better, right? We stopped focusing on social media as much instead of getting back into prospecting sales. But what I love that you talked about today is that this is prospecting. This is sales. It's just not building up a brand, which is helpful, but it's also connecting you to clients and being relational. So I loved how you brought that today. Because we've talked when we've interviewed a lot of marketing specialists and interviewed, and a common theme is just like about social media posts and branding, getting this brand awareness, but it has nothing to do with return on investment, with connecting with clients and getting leads. And I love that you brought that today of like, this is actually what's important to this is how we're getting a return. So just to say we're not doing a great job in that. It's not one of our pillars we're focused on right now, but from today, I really appreciate what you said. So I asked the timing question and things like that. So.
Awesome,
Cody. Michelle, before we close out, how can people learn more about Beyond the Method and follow you?
Easiest way is Instagram. So you can just send me a DM. Berman Media Social is my Instagram handle. Just type in Michelle Berman Michael. That will come up too. I answer all my own messages. So feel free to reach out and let me know that you heard me here with you three. And I would love that when that happens, because Luke, I'll send you a bunch of text messages with them, because it's my favorite thing. Like, it's just, I love when I go on somebody's show and then people actually listen and say, hey, I heard you on so-and-so. And then I can share it with the the creator of the content, right? So all three of you guys, that's pretty badass when that happens. So
that's awesome.
Let me know that you heard me here, and we'll just chat about it.
Awesome. Appreciate all you. Thank you all so much for listening. You can get the show notes as well as all of the links there that were mentioned over at staypaidpodcast.com. We'll also include those in the show notes of the video wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to show your support, go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, drop us a 5-star review along with a comment. We'll read it here on the show and send your questions in. Hit us up on Instagram. We're at Stay Paid Podcast. You can send us questions there. And then I think we're also putting up Spotify polls, Ethan, if that's still correct.
Yep, we saw those
on
up.
Spotify. I think you have to do it on the mobile.
Yes.
I don't think you can do it on the desktop, but on the mobile you can go in there, check out the poll there on Spotify. If you want to get a hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. Your action item from this is pretty simple. I want you to pull out your Instagram today, and I want you to actually comment or DM one of your friends to start a conversation. And that is the key. Just take 10 minutes, do that. And I challenge you, do it for the next 30 days and be blown away by what will happen from starting those conversations. Remember the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every business. It's top producers take action. Take action on that today.